Tammy didn't listen to me. I just got back to the car after checking out and paying the bill. When I handed the manager my room key across the counter, he ignored it. Instead, he stood up, walked to the wall behind his desk, and flicked on the switch. A red glow flicker on the walls. I turned around thinking it might be a police light, but it was he who turned on the flashing vacancy sign. Our room must have been the last one available, and now that we were done, the manager was trying to rent it out twice in one evening. The next thing he did was pick up the phone, press 2 numbers, pause, and then say Doreen. Number 3, urgently. Only after that did he return to the counter with my bill. After paying and returning to my car, I saw the maid's cart already in front of the open door of the room where Tammy and I had spent the last hour. I got in the car, thanked Tammy for the great time I had, and told her how much fun I had with her. As usual, she didn't listen to me because she was completely engrossed in her phone. The same thing happened on the way to the motel, as if our time together was just a temporary distraction from her endless texting with her friends. I tried to make my words sound sensory, but in reality, I was only pretending. I felt relaxed and satisfied because she knew how to push my buttons and make me enjoy herself. In return, I usually gave her some good sex, from which she was delighted. There was nothing more to our relationship than that. As I finished my casual expression of gratitude, I saw another car quickly pull into the parking lot, not far from my car. I wasn't worried because most of the lights in the motel parking lot were out, and I parked carefully in a lot so dark that no one could tell what color my car was, let alone see my license plates. The new car was parked almost directly in front of the office, so it was bathed in white light, highlighted by a flashing red vacancy sign. I saw a man get out of the car and quickly go to the office. While I was fumbling with the keys, the man left the office. He signed out almost as quickly as I did. His passenger, a woman, got out of the car and ran towards him. At the same time, she turned her head in all directions. She reminded me of the first time I met Tammy. I looked around, just like she was doing now, because I was scared to death that someone would see me. Tammy didn't care about anything other than revenge on her unfaithful husband. I sank into my seat, watching the woman. I knew I was in the dark and she couldn't see me, but there was no point in taking the risk. The woman stepped into the white light. The vacancy sign flashed bright red, and her worried face was clearly illuminated. My heart has stopped. It was Helen. 2 seconds later, they were at the door of the room. The maid has already left. My wife entered the room, and the door closed behind them. My first instinct was to jump out of the car, break down the door, beat the man to a pulp, and drag Helen by her hair to my car. But I pulled myself together and took a deep breath. I looked at Tammy to see if she had seen anything. She was completely immersed in her phone. When I calmed down, I became scared. My throat tightened. It felt like someone was strangling me to death. These were my physical and mental reactions to the realization that I could stop Helen before she cheated. But if I did, it would destroy our marriage. I started the car because I didn't trust myself. If I had stayed there, I might have done something I would regret for the rest of my life. I quickly drove to the mall where Tammy had left her car. As a schwal, I parked a few rows behind. She felt that the car was not moving, looked up, saw where we were, and opened the door. Bye. Bye. A second later, she disappeared from my sight. I looked around the parking lot and didn't see anyone. I screamed, and then I couldn't stand it and burst into tears. I hit the steering wheel so hard that my hand hurt. I also wanted to hit myself on the head hard enough to drive away the thoughts that were racing wildly in my brain. I don't know how long it took until I calmed down. I didn't look at my watch, but I knew that now I had one less question left. The maid didn't have time to change the bedding, so she probably just laid it on top. By this time, Helen was covered in the dried sweat that Tammy and I had left there. I choked on the thought. I forced myself to get that image out of my head and think about what would happen. What are my options? I could go home immediately, pay Mrs. Reynolds, and send her home. I might have a couple of drinks before Helen gets home. When she sees my car in the garage, she will have time to rehearse her story before she enters. I know roughly how it will be. She needed to buy something at the mall. I wondered if this was the same shopping center where I parked. Should I drive around, find her car, and wait for her? Helen plans carefully, as do I.